Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play with AK, featuring me, your host Akukami. In this StarCraft episode, we'll be taking a look at a game I played on ladder. This is going to be a TVR, yes, a TVR matchup on Entombed Valley. R standing for random, as my opponent decided to play random and will spawn as any of the three races. Starting off in the 11 o'clock position is me, spawning as the blue Terran player. Meanwhile, my opponent, BUJIGANOMEMI, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, so I apologize if I butchered your name, spawning as a red Protoss player in the 5 o'clock position. I've been casting a lot of Protoss and Zerg games because I haven't been playing against too many Terran players, and I wonder if Terran is starting to become an unpopular race here in the North American server. If any of you have any information about that, please let me know, as I don't know where to actually look for that kind of information. Anyways, building this standard supply depot, going to be going for this standard wall off, supply depot here, racks here, supply depot over there. As I speed through this a little bit, my opponent will be scouting me in the counterclockwise position, going for scouting in this location, going to be scouting me after that in this location, and will be able to find me. Meanwhile, send my own scout in the clockwise position, going to be scouting him out here in this location, and going to be scouting him out here. My opponent does manage to find me in my base, and I don't complete the wall off in time. He actually leaves this here, doesn't move it around, as he's trying to busily set up his own army structures, building two gateways before this cybernetics core. Of course, building that gas before my cybernetics core, and actually slow things down a bit, because what you're going to see here is I go for my 13 refinery, 15 orbital, and after building my second supply depot, go straight for my factory here. This is going to be a TVP mech game. Yes, I do go for mech in this game, and I think this is one of the more interesting games, killing off my SCV as it tries to sneak by this spawning zealot. Also putting down another pylon and chrono boosting that warp gate research, also taking his second gas. I put down a bunker in the front of my base, and I normally put at least 1 or 2 bunkers when going for mech play, because that early stalker and zealot aggression, if there's any sentry aggression also, this really destroys this build. And if you don't have at least 2 bunkers at the front of your wall off, you are going to lose severely, because if he manages to force field and get a force field around this area, surrounding area, you won't be able to hold off your opponent with just pure marines and no bunker, simply because he'll just run over you with stalkers. Even though you'll be mass repairing, he'll just wall off your SCVs, repairing SCVs with his force fields, and you're going to lose. Anyways, putting down a factory and followed by a starport, and actually putting down a tech lab and swapping it after it finishes with my starport, going to be going for cloak first. I'm not sure if going for cloak first before the first banshee is a good idea. Higher level players, any of you watching, please let me know what I should be doing. Of course, going for my second gas. I actually went for my second gas as my factory was building. Going to be putting down my second bunker in there as my opponent goes for his expansion. Scanning my opponent, discovering that he's putting up his forge, going for some upgrades, of course. Finishing his cybernetics core warp research, and yeah, just macroing up, forgetting to put more probes on this gas here, and yeah, just continuing to macro up. Back at my base, my first banshee will appear, and my second bunker will finish, and I will send out my first banshee to do harassment as my cloak research will finish up. Going to be starting my second banshee, and I'll send out an SCV scout just to check the front of his base and to distract him as I move around behind his bases with my banshee. And I'll slow things down a little bit here. I'm going to be going for my own expansion, putting my command center here. I don't know why I put it there. I probably should have put it here because it's closer to this natural location. Meanwhile, back at my opponent's base, cloaking and starting to do some economic damage, taking down those probes. 1, 2, they're dropping like flies. 3, 4 probes. As my opponent has nothing to handle this with, going for that level 1 ground weapons upgrade, coming out with a robotics facility and can't really do anything here. Deciding to try and kill off this robotics facility with my Banshee instead of going for any more probes, as I do want to delay that observer scout from detecting me. Meanwhile, back at my base, coming out with 2 more factories, and as you can see here, I'm really hurting for gas. At this point, I probably should be moving out with my command center, or actually I should have built it here, or I don't know what I should be doing. I think I should be building it here instead, because as you can see here, my opponent is pinned back in his base, and there's nothing he can really do at this point to handle it. Driving away my Banshee because I actually lost all of my energy on Cloak. Realizing that he's shooting my this Banshee, my second Banshee, and I pull out with that one Banshee before it gets too much damage on it. Meanwhile, back at my base, building a Viking. I think this was a big blunder. Well, not a big blunder, but this was a blunder on my part, because I was just using this for scouting, but I probably should have just used SCVs, because if I lose this is a bigger investment than losing one of these, because SCVs are only 50 minerals. Not going to be getting into the argument of, well, if you scout with your SCV, you'll be losing mining time, and you know what? Let's just say for argument's sake that losing this is more expensive than losing this. I don't know if that argument would even hold up. Anyways, getting back into the game, my opponent is, well, not doing a whole lot of anything at the moment. I don't think he realizes that I'm attacking this pylon here, as I'm in the back of his base with my other Banshee, just keeping him pinned back. And right now, I really should have been moving my command center, my orbital, to my natural. And that's one of the things that I should remember when trying to do this mech build TVP. Going to be speeding things up a little bit. Oh, excuse me. There we go. We're to be speeding things up a little bit. Putting down 2 more gateways here, turning them into warp gates. Meanwhile, my opponent sends out his observer scout, going to be scouting if my natural is already taken, which it already is. And yeah, just continuing to macro up. My opponent's observer moves silently into my natural, going to be scouting out that I do indeed have a base here, but will be subsequently shot down by this Thor and missile turret for observer. Meanwhile, as you can see here, I'm having a lot of trouble trying to establish more factories so that I can start building my army, as I did go for that armor level 1 level 1 armor upgrade, and my opponent actually breaking these rocks down, trying to build an expansion here, realizing my other Banshee was there, and yeah, killed it. Let's slow things down a bit. Deciding to shoot this pylon down because I'm trapped pretty much, and I can't really get out without being shot at by either of these photon cannons. Deciding to just try and take out that pylon as best as I could, and yeah, took down both of my Banshees. Still expecting some Banshees in this base, and I just scanned to check where his army is, if he's coming back. Also coming out with that 1-1 upgrade, as my Thors and my mech army in general is just 0-1 in upgrades. Going to be coming out with another command center here and another one here, my 3rd and 4th bases, 2nd and 3rd expansions, as I hold the middle position with this Viking here. Not holding the watchtower, but just the center. Speeding through things a little bit, coming out with that, well, not yet. I was going to say coming out with level 2 armor upgrade for my mech. At this time, you can see my minerals are climbing, and I'm trying to do my best to macro up, trying to wait for enough gas to build my Thor army, and I probably should have built both of my command centers earlier so that I can have a 3rd base and another location to mine gas from. sending out building Vikings, because as I slow things down a bit here, I do scan in this location. I missed it, but I scan in this location or somewhere in the area and see that he has a robotics bay, researching the thermal lance upgrade. And in this game, well, actually, in a previous game, I should say, I actually lost because I didn't have Vikings to deal with the 6 or 7 Colossi that my opponent had against my 10 or 11 Thors. They were actually, I will mention that towards the end of the game what happened in that engagement in the other game, which I lost. Meanwhile, trying to saturate, going to be moving out with my third command center or third orbital. Going to be moving out in this location and landing here and trying to saturate that area. Meanwhile, moving out with my fourth base, going to be landing in this area as I am running out of places to mine from, and well, patches to mine from, and moving my SCVs to fresh patches and also these much needed gas Vespine geysers. Speeding through this a little bit, moving out just as my 0-2 upgrades finish, realizing that my opponent is not here in the center of the map, deciding to move out in the center of the map, closer towards my opponent's base, as I continue to stream my reinforcements or the rest of my mech army towards the center of the map, having Marines, Hellions, Thors, no tanks, and Vikings, of course, no tanks, and 1 missile turret to get rid of any observer scouts as I slow things down a little bit. Putting up a sensor tower to scout for any warp prism drops or any other locations my opponent decided to hit while my mech army is back at this location in the center of the map, and trying to saturate this location, not doing so successfully as I go for that level 3 plating upgrade on my vehicles as my opponent goes for his level 1 weapons upgrade. And here comes the big engagement in the middle of my map. My opponent's sending out his stalkers first, going to be taking down this Viking for free as I realize I'm getting attacked. Going to be swinging around trying to get my Vikings in a good location to take out his Colossus as he decides to engage my army with his stalkers first. Going to be taking out my Hellions, and look at my Vikings not doing much of anything at the moment, taking down this Colossus in the back of his base. Going to be retreating with my Thors as I do want to separate his stalkers from my Vikings, taking out his Vikings, turning around and re-engaging his army with my Thors, and just destroying everything he had. He was 2-3 in upgrades, taking out this observer scout as my turret was there, not letting this Colossus live, and at this point he laughs, calls the good game, and leaves. I was able to successfully harass my opponent with my Banshees, and I kept him pinned back at his base with his units because he had no way of dealing with it except to leave his army back at his base. And I was able to kill lots of his probes and just basically stop his mining for a little bit until he had enough defenses to deal with my Banshee harass. I think I mentioned this in one of my other games, but the biggest problem I'm having right now is how to get some more gas. And obviously you build an earlier command center, but if that's true, then what do I do with the minerals, the extra minerals that I have? Do I build more Marines, or do I build another command center, or what? Higher level players, please let me know. In the final engagement in the center of the map, I was able to successfully win this by killing off his Colossus with my Vikings. For those of you who don't already know, even though Thors will straight up win against a Colossus in a 1 vs 1 fight, it will lose massively if there's no Viking support when there are multiple Colossi versus multiple Thors. That about wraps it up for this game. If you liked my commentary and videos, please subscribe to my channel, thumbs up and like this video, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again on another episode of Let's Play with AK. Take care, everyone.